So let's call the meeting to order. Who's going to rule?
I will.
Okay.
Commissioner Keys?
Present.
Commissioner Pappas?
Here.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Here.
Commissioner Shoneman? Here. Mayor Dodges?
Here. So all members present.
And
Of course, we have Alderman at Large Mike O'Brien. Thank you, Mike, for coming. There is a motion to approve the minutes of June 24th. Commissioner Moriarty.
Move to approve the agenda. I'm sorry,
No, it should be the agenda, yes. Motion to approve the agenda.
as presented.
Thank you for the motion. All those in favor? Oh, so we got to do a roll call.
Commissioner Keys?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman? Yes. Commissioner, Mayor Dodges?
Yes, motion passes. Now we have a motion to approve the minutes of June 24th. Commissioner Pappas.
I'll move to approve the minutes of the Board of Public Works meeting of June 24th, 2021.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Keys?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman? Yes. Mayor Dodges?
Yes, motion passes. Public comment. Is there any member of the public on the video or by phone who would like to speak to the board?
Laura Cahoon.
Could you please go ahead?
Laura Cahoon at 30 Greenwood Drive. I'm calling tonight to complain about a curb that was put up on Nottingham. This area has very narrow streets and has put a curb up between 10 and 12 inches high and has also put it on the roadway to make the street even narrower. This is absolutely ridiculous. A person walking on the side of the road can no longer jump to get on a person's property to get out of the way of cars. The curb has been down approximately 1 month and it's already beaten. The people that put this curb down did not really look at the properties. At one point, they have taken away the right of one property owner to get his 2 cars off his land. If a resident is hit by a car on Nottingham, they will have every right to sue the city because this curb is ridiculous and is totally unnecessary with this height. This road is also a well-traveled road for children taking the school bus. If anyone from the city actually reviewed what they did, they would realize that this curb is way too high and a total waste of taxpayers' money. The city did not ask the residents if they wanted it down. The city just did it, and now the residents must deal with it. God help us. Also, it would have been better if the city actually fixed the sidewalks instead. We would be safer in this community. Thank you.
I just wanted to put out there, make sure you understand that the curb was put up at the request of residents because of drainage problems that they have with water coming down the hill on Nottingham. So it was done at the request of residents to prevent their property from being washed out.
I've talked to 6 different households and they are very upset and they said nobody asked them. And I think if you guys just came over and looked at this, you would realize how ridiculous this is. This is a death trap and somebody's going to get hit by a car.
Is there any other member of the public who would like to speak to the board?
If there isn't, can I ask a question to the engineering? Have to make sure that nobody else from the public wants to speak?
Commissioner Pappas, I don't hear anyone else, so yeah, go ahead and ask engineering.
Okay, so I have a comment and a question because it's interesting. I think I don't know if I spoke to the city engineer last year, but I spoke to the director. I got 3 complaints over at Farley Street, and I think that road was totally done from scratch. So, and we did put one of those higher curbs in, and people, you know, were very upset over the look of it, and I guess I have a question. I have a couple of questions. So the first question for engineering: what kinds of studies are done before we put up a curb like that when no curb had existed before? Because the complaints I've heard were areas where there was no sidewalk. It was just it's just no sidewalk and there's grass on the side. So I was wondering if we had some criteria to go by when we put up a curb like that.
And now, Commissioner Pappas, what section of Farley Street are we talking about, just so I can follow?
I thought it was mostly no, it's street, not road. I thought most of Farley Street had the curb in. So wherever the curb is, that's where I got the complaints.
Okay.
It's
Engineer?
Stark to.
Because we've got basically two big blocks.
I think so. I think it's Stark too.
Is Mr. Hudson on here? Do you have any? Can you answer this without checking into it, or do you need to check it out?
I'm gonna need to look into it in more detail about these specifics. I mean, I am aware of the Nottingham situation. It's as you characterized it. We had received complaints from owners previously about erosion along the edge of the road. The curbs are added to control stormwater and to route it to the structures that we have. So yeah, after we installed it, we did get some complaints for the people that didn't want it. So, you know, it's a mixture of people who wanted it, people that didn't want it. We did send a letter to the neighborhood after the fact, after we gotten some complaints. But yeah, whenever we do this work, we're trying to address issues that have been raised in the past. We're not doing it for no reason. We're trying to do it to address previously documented issues. So I'd be happy to look into these specific areas in more detail and provide additional information. I'm not out there day to day, so I don't have specific information on all these locations.
All right, so you'll check out Farley Street and get back to us.
Sure.
Okay, and can I just have one more comment, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I guess the one comment is, I know we don't allow overnight parking in most of Nashua. That's something, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the Economic Development Director that isn't expanding the program, or if it's the Infrastructure Committee. Although most of us would not think that it would be a great idea to park on one's front lawn. Some people don't really have a whole lot of other options for overnight parking if they have, big families or, different cars. So I think that might be something that we might take into consideration when we put the big curbs up, because it can impede people being able to use their property as they wish. That said, I fully understand that the city engineer is trying to make the roads last as long as they can. But I do, I do think that when these new curbs are that high, they do kind of get beat up and become rather unattractive. So those are my two comments, and I would like to thank the city engineer for taking a look into this.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
There was a characterization of the curb being 9 or 10 inches high. That's never the case. There could be a period of time where we mill a road between milling and paving. There's curb there. It could be that high for a brief period of time, but curbs are on the order of 6 or 7 inches high. We're not putting up 10-inch curbs.
Commissioner Schoeneman.
That was my question. Is there a standard curb height, or is there a low curb height, standard curb height, high curb height? How are they characterized and chosen?
Sure. So it depends on the type of curb. When you have a vertical granite curb, that can be anywhere from 5 inches to 7 inches. A lot of these roads, we're putting down the bituminous asphalt curb, and that's tends to be a bit shorter. And of course, there's a couple different shapes of those too. So it does depend. But typically I'd say, it's usually around 6 inches high.
Okay. All right. We will now move on to the wastewater department. We have item A, Commissioner Tees.
I move to approve the installation of 3 supply fans in the wastewater facility blower building in the amount of $29,400. Funding will be through Department 169, Wastewater Fund, Wastewater Account Classification 81 Capital Outlay / Improvements.
And Mr. Boucher is here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dave Boucher, wastewater superintendent. Wastewater facility purchased 3 huge supply fans to put in our blower building. Supplies air through the building that houses our turbolift blowers. These are large supply fans that sit up in the ceiling above conduits. So we have to have a company come in. They can do rigging work to install these. So this company, Eastern Heat Pump and Mechanical, they would do rigging. They would remove the old supply fans and install the new ones.
Okay. Questions, comments? Could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Teese?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Donches?
Yes. Motion passes. Now we're on item B, Commissioner Shoneman.
I move to approve the 2-year contract to install and monitor 4 flow meters within the collection system to flow assessment of Auburn, New Hampshire, in the amount of $61,200. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater, Fund wastewater, account classification 53, professional services.
Mr. Boucher?
Thank you. This is to install 4 flow meters in our interceptor. Currently, we have flow meters installed at our CSO sites, but we have nothing measuring the interceptors throughout the city. We have 3 main interceptors, where we have 2 meter in 2 different sections of one of the interceptors. So currently, all the flow is measured through 1 flow meter at the wastewater facility. So this would allow us to understand how the flow moves through the city. If we have an increased amount of flow in a particular area, we can determine what might be causing it. So this is a company that we currently use for the CSO flow metering. We will use it for the metering of our interceptor flows.
Questions? Commissioner Moriarty?
I'm sorry. So these are new? We've never had these flow meters?
No, these would be new.
This is incredible. We haven't had that concept prior.
We only had one in the past that would measure the heights and flow coming in.
And I think it's a great thing to do. Yeah, it's quite important.
All right. Anyone else? Could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Teese?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Donches?
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have item C, Commissioner Moriarty.
Move to approve the contract with the Felice Corporation of Drake, Massachusetts in the amount not to exceed $5,335,200 for construction of the pump station upgrades Phase 2 project. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater fund SRF loan activity pump station upgrades Phase 2.
Mr. Boucher?
This is a phase 2 of our pump station project. It was put out to bid and the police came in as low bidder. It's the remaining 8 pump stations, which includes one of the CSO sites, CSO 5, which is on Bridge Street. Police is the company that did the first phase. We worked well with them. They did a nice job. We've continued to use them on phase 2.
Commissioners?
Mayor,
Commissioner
the only
Moriarty?
thing I would say about this is it was a sloppy bid. I mean, it's $5 million and it's all written in pen instead of nicely presented to us. It's just like, who does that today? I just couldn't believe it. This is a big corporation. Anyway, that was my reflection. I know you have the answer. I was just making comment.
They have done decent work for us.
They had, we worked well with them, yeah.
Yeah.
They did nice work with phase one. Sure,
How much did phase one cost?
I
Just ball.
don't recall.
Okay. All right, any other comments, questions?
Actually, all set. I think so. Is everything's working on outside?
Commissioner,
Going over there,
Oh,
over here?
Yeah, he's watching up there on streaming, so, okay. I'll double check when I go downstairs.
I'm gonna
Who's
Peg,
Who's Peg? All right, please call the roll.
Commissioner Tease?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
And Mayor Donches?
Yes, motion passes. We have item D, Commissioner Pappas.
I'll move to approve the contract with Wright Pierce of Thompson, Maine, in an amount not to exceed $427,600 for the construction administration services for pump station upgrades for Phase 2 project. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater, fund, SURF, loan, activity, pump station upgrades, Phase 2.
Mr. Boucher?
So Wright Pierce is the engineering firm we had on our first phase of pump station upgrade. We'd like to use them for the second phase as well, to provide construction phase engineering oversight throughout the project.
Commissioners? Anyone? Could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Tease?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Donches?
Yes, motion passes. Next, we have item E, Commissioner Tease.
I move to approve change order number 8 to the energy recovery upgrade contract with Methuen Construction Company of Plastow, New Hampshire, in an amount not to exceed $230,000 for final completion of remaining work for upgrades to the energy recovery facility. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater, fund wastewater, activity energy recovery upgrade project.
Mr. Boucher?
So change order 8 for the energy recovery project consists mainly of 2 items to cover some of the cost of downtime that was experienced during the project early on in the project. It also covers several PCO items, some that are complete, some that still need to be complete. They did some work on the fuel blending skid, relocating it. Another PCO item is piping relocation for the generators. The natural gas testing, we had to have additional natural gas testing, and cost to repair some electrical conduit. We also have additional work to be done for the SCADA interface unit. This project's still ongoing. We still have air permit items that are still, all the data that we had during initial testing is still being reviewed by the state. This is to put the exhaust of the generators into our air permit, so we're waiting on that. Also with the natural gas blending skid, so it blends natural gas with biogas. We had some issues with the flow meter, so that's out being tested by an independent company. When we receive that back, it has to be installed and retested. We believe it was one of the reasons for some issues we were having with one of our flow valves being regulated properly. It was opening too much based off of the flow. So we're hoping that corrects that issue. But we have some smaller punch system items still to be complete on this.
On the home stretch side.
Yes, I believe so.
All right, commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor, excuse me, let's call the roll.
Commissioner Tease?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Donches?
Yes, motion passes. Now we have item F, which is an informational item, which of course is in the memo, but maybe Mr. Boucher could briefly summarize it for us.
Yeah, so this is for the purchase of 4 VFDs, variable frequency drives. In our wet weather facility, we have 4 raw sewage pumps controlled by VFDs. Because there's a long lead time to purchase these things, they are an essential item to run the pumps. We had one of them die completely, so we need all 4 pumps. The 4th pump is a backup pump. So currently, we only have the VFDs. They're all the same age. We had an independent company come in. They told us they were obsolete, so we can't repair them or fix them. So we have to change them all out. We want to replace them all at the same time, so they're all the same unit, same age. So right now, we can run 3 pumps comfortably with the 3 that we have, but we were experiencing some problems with other ones. We were able to get them back working again, but who knows how long they'll work. So we're trying to get these purchased to get them here because it was an 8 to 9 week lead time. VFDs. So the earlier the better.
All right, questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, a comment?
Please go ahead, Commissioner Pappas.
I know sometimes for people listening, they might think that we don't blink an eye at the wastewater department because there are very large amounts of money that are being spent. But just to clarify that this department, it's very highly managed by Department of Environmental Services, and most of the stuff we really don't have a choice for. And you don't necessarily appreciate clean wastewater unless your wastewater isn't clean. So I think every so often it's important for us to remind folks of that. And I appreciate the explanations given by the superintendent. Thank you.
All right,
Question as well.
Commissioner Schoeneman.
I understand that this has been the wettest July on record or in the last 100 years. How has the system been holding up?
Yes, this facility has run quite a bit. It usually runs 12 times a year, but this has run a lot more than usual. It's been holding up. Everybody's getting a handle on how things operate, and it's been running very well. Plus, we have the new screens in, which has been a tremendous help for us. And we're removing all the large debris so water can flow through the facility. That's been probably one of the biggest bonuses of this whole facility. But if you need the pumps to get it go through. Once the water goes through the screen, then the pumps have to push it the rest of the way.
All of the storms that we've had, every time we have one of those big downpours, I think, okay, that water goes somewhere.
Yeah.
Somebody has to take care of all that that's going down the streets and into the sewers. It's interesting. It's performing well.
Yes, that's the goal, is to keep it going well.
The dams are generating a lot of electricity because of that. Much higher flow than usual in July. All right, any other questions or comments regarding that item? All right, we will move on to engineering. Item A, Commissioner Schoeneman.
I move to approve the residential and commercial wastewater service permits and fees as submitted.
Any questions, comments? Could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Dees? Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Schoeneman?
Yes.
Mayor Gotcha?
Yes, motion passes. We now have item B, Commissioner Moriarty.
Move to approve the poll license petition PSNH number 21-1989.
Could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Tees?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Schoeneman?
Yes.
And Mayor Gotcha?
Yes, motion passes. We now have item C, Commissioner Pappas.
I'll move to consider the hardship request from from Liberty Utilities to excavate in Burke Street, which has 4 months remaining on a 5-year moratorium to install gas mains.
Mr. Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just one moratorium item tonight. This is for gas work, as noted. They're doing work to support the paving work that we're doing, and they need to excavate into Burke Street at the Newberry Street intersection. This is a street that has 4 months left on the moratorium. This gas work that they do ahead of paving, it's to replace leak-prone cast iron gas main. So with that, I know there's Liberty representative on the phone. Should there be any questions?
Okay. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
My comment, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please go ahead.
Given that there's only 4 months remaining on a 5-year moratorium, I think that it would cause minimal damage to the road, and I think to support the new paving, I think is a good thing. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Tease?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Dodges?
Yes, motion passes. Next, we have item D. Commissioner Teves.
Move to approve a drain layers license for Cole & Son Excavating of Deerfield, New Hampshire, in accordance with Nashua City Code subsection 255-19, issuance of drain layers license, and authorize the Division of Public Works to temporarily suspend the license if work is found to be unsatisfactory during an initial 6-month probationary period.
Mr. Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as noted, this contractor has requested drain layers license. We checked the references. They were all favorable. They have quite extensive work working on private development sites, but limited work in right of ways. So that's why we're asking for the additional permission to withdraw the license or suspend it, I guess, during an initial 6-month probationary period. But we didn't hear anything that would lead us to be of concern, but that's something that we've been doing with new contractors.
All right, anybody? Comments? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Tease?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Dodges?
Yes, motion passes. Now we have item E. Commissioner Shoneman.
And move to approve the drain layers license for Dig Right Corporation of Newton, New Hampshire, in accordance with Nashua City Code 2519, issuance of drain layers license, and authorize the Division of Public Works to temporarily suspend the license if work is found to be unsatisfactory during an initial 6-month probationary period.
Mr. Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is almost a carbon copy of the previous item. Dig Right Corp has provided references. They were checked, all favorable. Just again, we have a minimal concern because of the lack of pipe main installation in right of way. So therefore we include the 6-month probationary period stipulation.
Could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Tease?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Dodges?
Yes. Motion passes. We have item F. Commissioner Moriarty.
Move to approve a drain layers license for LA Roshu Inc. of Concord, New Hampshire, in accordance with Nashua City Code 255-19, issuance of drain layers license.
Mr. Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this contractor, LA Broshu, again, references were checked. They've done quite a bit of work in other municipalities. So in this case, we didn't feel the need to include that stipulation. So we find their package satisfactory and recommend approval.
All right, any comments? Could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Tease?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Dodges?
Yes. Motion passes.
Might I ask a question?
Of course.
Is that, what is the before 255-19? Is that subsection? What does that mean?
Oh, that's section.
Is that just section?
Yeah, that's that double S thing there.
It's just section?
Yeah, that's a short thing.
Okay.
But
Maybe it's a legalese thing.
it's a symbol. It means really section.
Okay.
All right. Informational item, street opening permits. Are there any questions regarding that? Comments? Not, we'll go on to administration. Of course, we have budget transfers in the director's report, so I will turn it over to Director Foto.
I think they're fairly self-explanatory. If anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
And if it's okay, Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Pappas.
So it looks like we took $4,400 from other contracted services to computer software. What did we need that for?
Which, are you talking about the Public Works Administration and Engineering, Commissioner Pappas?
I think the first.
The first one?
Yeah, the first one, yeah.
And do you want to speak to that? That's your,
Sure. So this is that's for a piece of software that we have that enables us to analyze traffic. So it's TrafficWare is the company, but it's a program called Synchro. That's the program that most in the industry use in evaluating traffic impacts. You know, coming up with the levels of service and things at intersections, evaluating alternatives. So we have that program. Our license was outdated by I think 4 or 5 versions, so we elected to upgrade that to the current version.
So will that have to be done every year?
No, it won't have to be done every year. I mean, then we may evaluate entering into a maintenance thing. So instead of having this bigger hit, you know, every 4 or 5 years, we have a smaller hit each year, which enables us to upgrade. But we'll evaluate that as part of next year's budget review process.
Okay, thank you. And if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
It looks like under the street department, it looks like we took money from salt to miscellaneous equipment. What was that for?
that's for a diagnostic computer and fleet to help us better diagnose what our issues are with our equipment.
So that's not something that we usually budget for?
No, we had not budgeted for that. But they were finding that as things become more and more complex, we needed this computer to be able to diagnose more quickly. It'll save us a lot of time rather than trying to troubleshoot a lot through the equipment. So.
Okay, and then the last one, how come we had to take $225,000 from overtime and put it for traffic signal and control maintenance?
Okay, so that is, and Dan, you can speak more to that, but that is for traffic cameras and detection equipment. And I don't know, Dan, if you want to speak to the location of that.
Sure. So we have a lot of equipment that's failing, you know, or at its end of its useful life around the city. DW Highway is one of the major areas. So yeah, that's to replace old and outdated equipment, as well as the control systems and things to run that coordinated system.
So are we going to try to pay more attention in next year's budget so that we won't have to transfer? Because overtime can be a pretty iffy budget if we have a big snow winter.
Well, we never have enough to address everything, right? So when we see we have a light winter, then we start looking at what we could possibly spend that money on and try to prioritize from there. And this was a need that we had, but unfortunately, as you know, we had a level funded budget. So this year, so we couldn't come up with the money to pay for this, but this was a good opportunity given that we had a light winter and we had that money in overtime. So that's
So,
why we did
Commissioner,
that.
this is this isn't looking forward, Commissioner Pappas, this is looking back, so this doesn't restrict, operations for the fiscal year that just began. It's from the fiscal year that was just completed.
Can we have a snapshot as to how much extra money we had from snow plowing from this year and how it was spent? Is there any way we could do that for next month?
Yes, we can do
Yes.
that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And I guess the last one, it looks like, well, no, there's another one, but the cartograph, I thought we usually, that is something, that's a software we have. And I thought we had all the parts to that, but it looks like we had to take $5,000 from contracted services and put it into cartograph software.
So that was from some additional training that we opted to do.
Computer audio.
Needed.
Okay.
Training. They're also helping us. Some feedback, but they're also working with us to help us to better define our needs and develop some additional compatibility with GIS. So we're right now we're working on putting a lot of our assets into GIS that will then be transferred into cartograph. So we'll have all sorts of things, like there are engineering right now is using collector apps out in the field, and so they're able to put whenever they do any sewer work or anything like that, they're able to put that in the collector app, and then that's transferred directly into cartograph. So it gives us a really good snapshot of everything that's going on with a particular street. So we'll be able to look at things like when a street was paved, when the last time the sewer was upgraded, when the catch basins were repaired. Eventually we'll have all of our assets. So it'll be very helpful for us.
Okay, and are we going to keep track of this stuff for when the budget's planned? Even though it was kind of last year's budget, I kind of get that. But if next month we can find out how much extra we had left over and how we spent the money, I think that would be interesting for us to take a peek at. If it can be similar report like this great report you do for the budget transfers. Thank you.
We will have that for next month. All right, any other questions or comments on the budget transfers? If not, we will go to the director's report.
Okay, first comes up is a picture of an XD crosswalk. You'll see we have some of these throughout the city. This is one that was recently done on Robinson Road on a crosswalk. It's a stamped brick pattern, basically, that's right in the asphalt. So they've held up very well. We have one that's been in place. We have one on Concord Street. But we have one that's been on West Hollow Street, which sees a lot of traffic, and it's held up very well. So we've been using that. The next is as part of our paving program, we reconstructed some ADA ramps on East Dunstable Road and Timberline Drive. In our paving program, this is East Dunstable Road that we completed the binder paving on June 30th. We did an emergency repair to a sewer service at 3 Kinsley Street on June 22nd, and we didn't do that ourselves because of the depth. This is a thank you note we received from residents at 7 Sycamore Lane in appreciation of the recent paving we performed. And we also had done some regrading to address a historic drainage issue. Commissioner Schoeneman mentioned all the rain that we've had. We've been very busy with down trees and storm damage. So Park and Rec's been that's been taking a lot of our time. You can see over to the left that tree is actually on fire, which we don't see all that often. that's just some of it. We had a Panucci's, there was a tree that fell, a city tree that fell on Panucci's Tavern roof on July 5th. And then numerous trees that have been down and we've got to clear. So that's taken up a lot of parking rights time. And not to mention all the rain has made everything grow significantly. So it's been a tough month. Our 4th of July celebration was a hit. We estimate the attendance to be about 3,500 people. We didn't have all our normal field day events, but we did have fireworks, and we had food trucks, and the Silver Knights were serving food, and there was a great crowd, and people were very appreciative. And we were very, very worried the whole time, but it was pouring at my house, and I was on the phone with the superintendent saying, this can't go to national, this can't go national. And it only started sprinkling the last 5 minutes, so we made it through. So that was good. Our pools, again, we're thrilled to have all of our pools open and at 100% capacity. There haven't been any issues so far, and kids and families are ecstatic to be back. So and they have been busy. This is a sidewalk repair on Webster Street. This is crews milling and filling a damaged road. This is Townsend West. Our crews are milling and filling the Temple Street, the Temple Street tracks. This is, we removed some rocks on Robinson Road near Arian Field. I don't know if anybody has been by there, but this now has helped. So I don't know if anybody's been there or not, but you really couldn't pull off the road. You had to literally park in the street. So this allows people now to be able to pull off. So residents are very, very pleased about that.
I got very favorable comments from residents regarding this, because as you said, it gives room for people to park without having to block the road.
Yeah. Catch basin repair near Staples at 252 Daniel Webster Highway. This is wastewater staff cleaning a culvert on Murphy Drive to help improve drainage in the area. We had 270 households who participated in the June 3rd household hazardous waste collection, including 81 from Nashua. And interestingly enough, there were 141 households participating for the first time. So, our next collection will be Saturday, August 7th from 8 to noon at 25 Crown Street. And great news, Burke Street sold. Finally, it closed.
The closing's taken place?
Yes, it's closed.
Oh, that's awesome.
You never thought it would happen, right?
I didn't think it was going to happen, no.
A lot of people lost faith, I think. But they closed around July 14th or so. I don't know that was the date that exactly all the paperwork was done, but around that date, if not July 14th. It sold for $3.65 million, and we collected about $60,000 in delay charges, and 30,000 of that has gone to help with private development review. We've had a lot of private development that has come in for review, and Sarah Marchand, who's the community development director, was concerned that we'd have a hard time reviewing it all in a timely fashion. And so we put $30,000 in the engineering department in the event that we need it. So far we haven't needed it, but it's there so that if we need to subcontract out some of that private development review, we can do that. The other 30,000, I'm assuming is going to stay in the project, in the DPW facility project, as well the 3.65 million go to that as well.
Was it ever revealed to us who the buyer was?
It's 141 Burke Subsidiary LLC. So I know that.
I think they own it. I think the
adjacent
principal,
property.
yeah, right. Okay. The principal's own, I think the adjacent.
Yeah. So, and that's it.
Any questions, comments regarding the director's report?
Congratulations.
I know.
No, it's incredible, isn't it? After all that time. All right. If not, we will go to commissioners' comments. Do any commissioners have comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Moriarty.
I just want to make a comment, Mayor, about the moratorium, the paving moratorium, which I think the concept is excellent. I think it has deterred cutting into streets unnecessarily. And also, I think this board does have the statutory authority to approve or deny such a request by the ordinance and by our city charter. However, when I look at this, I don't think this board has the expertise or the experience to say yes or no on this. I think the person who should be doing this is the city engineer who has the experience and is licensed. You know, that's the way I'm looking at this going forward. If we need to change the ordinance to, that's just my thinking, because I'd rather see us be more of an appeals board. If the applicant doesn't agree with the decision of the engineer, they can come before us and appeal it. And that makes more, just like the Board of Assessors, a taxpayer can appeal their assessment, right? It's on here every month. We have several, usually every month, and because we're doing a lot of great paving in the city. But I just don't think, I think we should, you know, it makes more sense to me to have somebody who's educated and licensed to make that initial decision. So that's all I wanted to say.
All right, well, I'd be glad to talk to the legal department about what.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Commissioner Pappas.
So I would have two, I guess my response to that, I actually have educated myself. I did read there was something brought in front of the New Hampshire Supreme Court, and I think Nashua is missing out on charging people for the paving and for when they cut into the paving early. And I think it's our responsibility. We're bonding this money, and we're expecting the taxpayers to pay for bonded money for this. And frankly, I think that we've been too free with granting these moratoriums. And I paid very good attention to the presentation that was given by the former city engineer. And I vehemently disagree with that, unless we just want to charge a very large fee like Manchester and Concord does, because I think it's unfair to taxpayers to have to pay for roads and then have them cut into like Swiss cheese when we know that they're going to be. It does lower the lives of the road, and so I would respectfully disagree with Commissioner Moriarty. And my second item again is Main Street. I know last month we had some problems with the audio, and I will say that I know the public doesn't have much of a chance to speak to the Board of Aldermen due to limited public comment, but people are willing to put up with those barriers being put down in very inconvenient spots in Main Street. But for this year to finish up with COVID, but I will tell you that they're very frustrated. And when we're talking about having it done permanently or several years from now, I think that people are very upset and they don't want to tolerate it. It is a 4-lane. It's a 4-lane road. And I don't know if you caught it in the paper this Sunday, Mr. Mayor, but it was something I had brought up to the Economic Development Director, that rather than to put those barriers up every weekend, close down Main Streets X number of hours, just like they do Memorial Drive in Boston. It's a very low cost way to have people be able to enjoy Main Street. The excuse used when I suggested it last time was, well, we have our hospitals downtown. That's exactly my point. Now we have 6 months of time, basically, where you can't get through Main Street. And I certainly wouldn't want to be an ambulance trying to get through, or a fire truck. getting to get what's become a two-lane road that should be a 4-lane road. And, you know, as I said, people can block their ears on it, but I don't think that the public is at all happy about, I think that they'll tolerate it this year. But after this year, I think people have had enough of those barriers on Main Street. Thank you.
All right, any other commissioners' comments? Commissioner Shulman.
First, I would agree with Commissioner Pappas that as far as the moratorium goes, a hefty fee would be much more of a deterrent to people who are looking to sneak around the moratorium easily. That makes a lot of sense to me. I also strongly disagree that because we're not experts, that we can't provide oversight. We're not experts on any of that we provide oversight for across the board. But we can certainly educate ourselves, and we certainly get excellent explanations from the superintendents as they do their job at each meeting for each motion. And I don't feel like we need to be experts to provide good oversight. We are a system of checks and balances, so I think that that should remain in place. That's my feeling. The other thing is, last month, I mentioned that the work going on Webster Street, right across the street from our house, there was an issue with language and the workers using inappropriate language. The foreman, Bob Gendron, yeah, saw me out in my driveway working in my garden, and very handsomely apologized and explained to me what he had done to address that. And I was very impressed.
Thank you for.
Yes, I think that was very well handled. And, the whole department, that was well handled. Thank you.
Commissioner Tease.
With respect to the hardship requests that come before us to break through, the 5-year moratorium, are these transactions that have been vetted by the directors, the superintendent, sorry, and are there deals that reach the superintendent's desk that never get here? So in other words, the ones we seen being recommended for approval by the superintendent?
No, you see them all.
You see them all.
You see them all. It's, I understand what Commissioner Morgan is saying. It's kind of subjective though. I think it would be difficult for us to, some of these are for private development, some of them are for, hardships because a private residence wants to connect. So it would be hard for us to, I think, make a determination as to whether it was a true hardship or not. I think because it is a bit subjective, right? And I think it depends largely on what, some of them you've approved, some, I know some of the commissioners have disagreed with. So, yeah, I think it would be tough to put it, to put that in the city engineers lab. And you're right, they are difficult decisions. That's why we don't, the city engineer and I have talked about this many times. That's why we don't form an opinion on them, and we just let the parties bring them to the board and let the board make a determination. We don't like to see the streets cut into either. But sometimes the board makes necessary, and it is a true hardship to be able to do so. And the biggest problem is we're paving so much, and so people are just can't keep up. Liberty, they're having a tough time keeping up with the progress we're making with the paving program. So that's why you're seeing so many of them now, because so many of the streets have been newly paved, unfortunately.
Should they be vetted first, do you think, by the superintendent and then recommended to come here? So in other words, they might be endorsed, or is that not how the process Works under the charter.
I think it's by ordinance, but.
It is,
Yeah.
it is, but yeah.
Because
That being something passed by the alderman, right? Not the basic,
Well, I kind of agree with all of my peers in the sense that, you know, I'm not an expert on it. I'm reliant upon the city experts. I think by now, after almost 40 years, I get a sense for kind of what's going on and maybe who's going to vote which way. But Commissioner Pappas said, you know, other communities are charging a fee. I think, and I know we went through this exercise 2 years ago, but
Yeah,
why wouldn't we consider doing that?
we should.
I'd like to see if we could have the superintendent endorse it or be able to maybe vet it. And it would be valuable. We get their input anyway when we ask, but just because it's on the agenda doesn't mean they're endorsing. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any other commissioners?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
comments? Yes.
Maybe to
Alderman
help out, I do have the question, but is there bonding involved if anybody with a hardship or anybody who digs a hole in our street has to have a bond floated? And therefore, part of that bond is to make sure that the road is returned to its pre-existing state. And we have that, correct?
Yes.
So in other words, and how long does the bond last? Ground settles. What they do work this summer, are they liable next year because of settling in the road? That will naturally occur. So, you know, are they responsible to come up and re-attend it at that time? And I think that would probably help address some of these concerns. We're always going to have hardships, and I understand that. You know, somebody's gas main is going to deteriorate, a sewer line or something like that.
Right, right.
But it's the intention. What is the intention is, I think that for us, is if we're investing in our infrastructure, to get it back with the hardship, we understand it, but get it back to operational that we had left it.
Mhm.
You know. So do we have a bonding process?
We do have a bonding process, yes.
Yeah, okay, I figured as
Yes,
such.
we do.
All right, any other comments, questions from the commissioners? All right, let's go to personnel. Item A, Commissioner Tees.
Move to approve and unseal the non-public minutes for personnel from the Board of Public Works meeting of May 24th, 2021.
Would you call the roll?
Commissioner Tees?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
And Mayor Dodges?
Yes, motion passes. Item B, Commissioner Sherman.
I move to approve and unseal the non-public minutes for personnel from the Board of Public Works meeting of June 24th, 2021.
Would you call the roll?
Commissioner Tees?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Dodges?
Yes. Motion passed. Now, is there a motion for the non-public session?
Yes, I move by roll call that the board go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91A 3(2)B, the hiring of any person as a public employee.
Let's call a roll.
Commissioner Tees?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Dodges?
Yes, we will go to non-public session. So Jeff, I believe, Jeff, you're on the,
I move by roll call to seal the minutes of the Board of Public Works Personnel Non-Public Meeting of July 22nd, 2021, until such time as the majority of the board votes that the purpose of the confidentiality would no longer be served.
Commissioner Tees?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Moriarty?
yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Dodges?
Yes, motion passed.
I move by roll call that the board go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91A 3(2)A to consider the dismissal, promotion, or compensation as to city employees.
Could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Tees?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Dodges?
Yes. So Jeff, we're gonna go back into non-public. All right, let's see, where are we? All right, Commissioner Tees.
I move by roll call to seal the minutes of the Board of Public Works non-public meeting of July 22, 2021 until such such time as the majority of the board votes that the purpose of the confidentiality would no longer be served.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Tease?
Yes?
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Gosses?
Yes. Is there a motion to adjourn? Commissioner Pappas?
I'll move to adjourn.
Let's call the roll.
Commissioner Tease?
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Mayor Gosses?
Yes. And the meeting of the Board of Public Works is adjourned at 6:55 PM.